I feel like the real message of all your work that you're trying to communicate to people is that adventure heals,
Mm.
right? And I feel like what's lacking in a lot of people's lives is a spirit of adventure. They don't know how to adventure. And what you're asking people to do is to just play with it, just pick it up, start small, get used to it, and make the idea of adventure a regular part of your life.
Welcome to the Rich and Regular podcast, where we explore life at the intersection of money. I'm Kirsten.
And I'm Julian, and our guest today is Jillian Johnsrud. She's a writer, coach, speaker, and someone who's helping people rethink how, when, and why they should step away from work.
Jillian is an amazing friend, person, coach, but she's someone who never really expected to retire early, and so she made a plan to retire often. In fact, that's the name of her new book, Retire Often: How Anyone Can Take Multiple Career Breaks to Unlock Adventure, Advance Their Careers, and Find Financial Freedom. Now, Jillian's 42 now, but by 40, she had taken over a dozen mini retirements. She and her husband had traveled abroad to over 27 countries. She had adopted 4 children on top of 2 biological ones. She had invested in real estate and toured the US in a camper. And she's been teaching and coaching others to do the same for like the last 10 years. This conversation is so rich, not just because she knows what she's talking about, but because she has truly lived it. And after talking with her, I didn't just feel like converted. You know how some authors try to like convince you to do whatever they're saying? I actually felt seen. I felt like I had been handed language for something that I had already been living, but couldn't fully describe or hadn't fully named. So as you listen, I'm telling you right now, try to stay open, not just to the idea of taking multiple breaks, but to the possibility that you have already started it, or you might be doing it right now. You just haven't called it that. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. I know I did, and let us know by leaving a comment. And of course, leave a 5-star rating and review and let us know what you loved and what you didn't. Actually, don't let us know what you didn't. Just let us know what you loved.
Let's go ahead and jump right in.
Yeah.
Everybody give me the flight attendant verbal, yes, we're ready to go. I want to start with the title because the first time when I heard the title, I was so like, man, that's really cool. Because just when you thought that every angle and approach to tackling the conversation about retirement had been covered 15 times over, the idea never dawned on me that you could look at it the way that you're looking at it. And so Retire Often: How Anyone Can Take Multiple Career Breaks to Unlock Adventure, Advance Their Career, and Find Financial Freedom. But that retire often part is such a interesting idea. Was that always the like how did you come up with that?
So I've been writing about mini retirements for almost a decade now, like almost 10 years. And it was probably 6 years in. So 6 years of talking about something, I was like, this is what I'm trying to describe. Because I think it is usually a very binary conversation. Like we're all in on work or we're all in on retirement, and the two should never mingle. 100% work or 100% retirement. But what if we could mix them together? What if we could pivot back and forth between our ambitious careers and all of these benefits that retirement can bring, and kind of reimagine what that career trajectory could look like?
Would you say you were redefining retirement? Because I know that that's something that's been said or mentioned before, but would you consider it like a redefinition, or is it just more like a another way of looking at it? Because it almost feels like a dare.
I think that the retirement itself is very similar. A mini retirement is very similar to traditional retirement. But what is a little bit revolutionary is that you don't have to do retirement once. You don't have to work for 40 years straight and then retire until you die. You can mix these things in and you can pivot back and forth. And not only is that great for your personal life, but in the book, I try to show how this might actually be really great for you financially. And it might be really great for you professionally. Like all areas of your life could improve by going back and forth. And it's like most things in life, like working out. You could work out 8 hours a day for years and years and years and then take 10 years off. Or you could mix it up. You could work out an hour a day and then take time off and work out an hour a day. Like the mix is usually better than the all in on one thing or the other.
I completely agree. I think you have a gift for writing books that have titles that feel like I dare you. Because I remember when I read Fire the Haters, I remember thinking, this isn't a book about creating content. This is a book about having the courage to do something different, regardless of what people say. And I feel like Retire Often is kind of the same way. When you were writing the book, were you picturing someone who already believes in this approach, like the people you've been working with? Or were you picturing someone who's still skeptical and needs a little more convincing?
So, like I said, I've been writing about it for 10 years. Probably the last 8 years, I've been doing one-on-one coaching and then group coaching for mini retirements. So I've sat across from people who already like the idea, who want to implement it, but they have some concerns. They have some fears, they have some hesitations, they got a lot of questions. So I wrote the book based on all of those conversations with people. So my thought process was, I'll go on podcasts, I'll do media things. People will hear the idea and they'll go, hey, that sounds cool. Yeah, I could use a month off. Actually, that would be amazing. But I have some concerns. And the book, well, it is very positive. It's not selling you on the idea of a mini retirement. I'm assuming when you buy the book, you like the idea. It's an easy idea to like. Who wouldn't want a month off? But that you've got some questions of like how this is technically going to work. So I really go almost one by one, every fear, every concern that you have. You got 40 of them. I'm going through all 40, just one by one, and like addressing those in very specific ways. Because I've worked one-on-one with people. When you sit across from another human, you can't just be like, oh, just go talk to your boss. It'll be awesome. Like, they'll totally love the idea. Because the person's like, no, exactly what do I say? Like, exactly what am I going to say? What is that conversation? When do I talk to them? When do I send the email? So I tried to put that specificity in the book to really give people confidence.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's exactly what it felt like as I was reading it. I finished it and I was like, I feel like I just binged someone's entire blog or had access to like their journal, because I could tell it was advice that wasn't just advice that sounds good. Like, it's advice that is nuanced and has legs, where it's like, well, if this happens, then maybe try this. But if this is the case, then try this. And you only get that from experts who have worked with a lot of different people and seen a lot of different flavors of the same issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I want to make sure that people are hearing you correctly, because you have such a soft voice. You're not saying many retirements, you're saying mini retirements.
Oh yeah,
mini. Like really tiny retirements, right? And you've mentioned it a couple of times, but I'm hearing it, and it could be because the volume is a little low, but you're talking about mini retirements. And in the book, you define it. I want to read specifically from the book. You say you define a mini retirement as any time you, 1, step away from your primary career, 2, do it for a month or more, or 3, do it to focus on what matters to you. I want to zero in on that middle part there, because you're very...
Hold on. All 3 criteria are necessary for the mini retirement.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to zero in on the month, right? Like what is it so specific about a month?
I have found that a month is kind of the minimum effective dose. So some people do 6 months, 3 months, a year, but something kind of magical happens in a month. And if you've ever had, a 1-week vacation feels like a lot of work, like you're barely getting into vacation mode. But if you've ever had like a 2-week vacation, and man, something in that second week, you start to like breathe a little easier. You've kind of forgotten, you're mentally out of that workspace. Like you're not thinking about it all the time. You're like, I'm not even thinking about what my coworkers are doing. And you start to relax it a little bit around week 3 or 4. Like people really start to be able to recover from burnout and mentally and emotionally disconnect and be more present in their body, more present with the people around them. And the other thing, you can do a lot of cool stuff in a month. Like you can hike the Camino in a month. You could go to Mexico and learn Spanish and eat street tacos in a month. Like it gives you the ability to have access to these experiences that don't fit alongside your 9 to 5. You want to do a big road trip through national parks, you're not doing that on a 4-day weekend. Like you need bigger chunks of time, and a month is enough to do something that you'll remember for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I love that. And I completely agree with you. Our honeymoon was 2 weeks. And that at the time was the longest time we'd ever been away from work. And it was during a time where we were both practically career obsessed. And that was essentially the beginning of Rich and Regular, us realizing at that point on a cliff, or right beneath the cliff on South Africa somewhere, saying, you know what, we can do this. We should do this. And, even if we fail, we'll be able to look back and we'll have an incredible story to tell. But you're absolutely right. It does take more than 4 days, 5 days. Like I almost cringe a little bit when I think back to the amount of times I thought I was really pushing it when we were doing like a 5-day vacation. It's not until you really start to feel the weight of the world on your shoulders where you just tell yourself like, and I think a lot of people know, but like, it's just not enough. It takes you 2 days just to even settle in.
Right.
Like you need a lot more time than what most people give themselves. So I completely agree with that point.
Mm-hmm. And I say that mini retirements are life-changing. And one of the reasons is that we're changed in them. Yes. Just like your kind of revelation, even 2 weeks in, you're like, oh, wait, I have a different view of this. I have a new experience that's shaping how I'm imagining my future. And the reason it's life-changing is because we come back different. Mm-hmm. And when you're different, you can't operate in the same space. You can't move forward in the world in the same way because you're not the same person. And so life will be different moving forward.
I just love when I come across an idea or a book that makes me say, I think I've been doing a version of that without calling it that. Yep. Because as I was reading, I remember that there have been stretches of this year, kind of slower seasons where I wasn't necessarily in productivity mode. I was in reflection mode or creative mode or parenting mode or whatever mode I was in. Sometimes I was cleaning and fixing things around the house. But I never thought of that as a mini retirement. I just assumed like this is just what happens when the inbox is slow or when, Bo's playing baseball. So now I'm kind of interrogating that based on the criteria and realizing like I might have already been doing this and just didn't have the language for it. Do you ever see that with the people that you're working with? Like they're realizing that the biggest shift isn't necessarily logistical. It's more internal, and they just need permission to give themselves the break before they can actually start being intentional with the time that they already have.
Yeah, it's funny doing a lot of podcast interviews for the book because oftentimes partway through the interview, the host will be like, actually, now that I think about it, I've done one of these. Yeah, no, I did this right after college. Like I took 2 months off and I went to Southeast Asia. I was interviewing with someone yesterday who was like, yeah, actually, I negotiated this off, just like you were saying, from my boss. Like, where we were about to go on our honeymoon and we wanted to go to Southeast Asia. And like, I did the 4 points. Like, it was positive, it was specific, it was a one-time event, it was interesting. And they said yes. And I think once my hope with the book and the interviews is that the interviews, people get the idea and they're like, oh, that's cool. That's interesting. And then they read the book, even if they're not like, I'm going to do this next year or I'm going to do this in 6 months. But if you read it, you go, oh, this is how it works. This is the process. And then life will present you with opportunities. Maybe you get laid off. Maybe someone in your family gets sick. Maybe you're switching jobs and you're moving across the country and you go, oh, actually, I remember that idea. Or, in your case, actually, this is a slow season. What if I'm a little bit more intentional and lean in entirely to like creative work or lean in entirely to my family life? And you kind of build your life in a way that it makes this more possible, even if it's not the specific plan going into it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, especially when you start talking about the triggers that actually push people to it, because we found, and it's one of the areas that, we're going to get into the financial aspects of this soon, but grief is one of those things, whether it's grieving loss of, a family member or grieving just a change of their lifestyle due to a layoff or something like that. It really just kind of scares people. But along those lines, do you think the idea of retirement just still scares people? Like, do you think it's still a scary idea, even though there have been all of these iterations, whether it's fire, like, and now mini retirement? Do you think the idea is still scary to people, or do you think
I think
that,
it's the word.
is it the
Like,
word?
Oh, I think the actual thing is scary. I
yeah.
think it's one of those things that you're like, that sounds awesome. And then as you get closer, you're like, ooh, I've got some concerns. I've got some concerns. Because statistically, it's a hard transition. If you've been all in on your job, so much of your social circle is there. You're walking away from your social circle. You're realizing I've kind of bankrupted my other friendships because I haven't had time for any of these people. Maybe you and your spouse haven't spent 24 hours a day together ever. And now you got to learn how to navigate this, and they're underfoot and they're unloading the dishwasher wrong and they need to go find their own friends because you cannot be their only friend. There's a lot of, and you're not earning money. And for people who love earning money, that's scary. And maybe you're pulling money out of investments, which feels wrong and bad because it's like a piggy bank. And you have to navigate all of these things. And you have these hopes and dreams and these cool things that you plan to do, but you've never had time to do them. So sometimes you don't like doing those things. You're like, I thought I would love learning Spanish. And now you're retired and you're like, actually, this is boring as all get out. Like, I have no desire. Like, it was a cool idea, but it's so disappointing. And it's one of the advantages of mini retirements is that if you're nervous about retirement or if you're excited about retirement, this gives you like a test run. It gives you a little sample, and you get to problem solve some of this stuff. You get to work out some of those kinks. And so you're more prepared mentally, emotionally, logistically when you do enter traditional retirement, whether that's at 40 or 70.
That's such a good point, because I know for a fact, Kirsten and I are likely thinking of the same people, right? We've had some recent conversations with some people who we know are going through exactly what you're describing right now. And what's interesting about it is you've got one group of people who are completely afraid of retirement because they don't know if they have enough money. But then you have some people who actually do have more than enough money, and they're still completely afraid of retirement for all of the reasons that you mentioned before. Like, they don't know what to do with their time because so much of their day has been dictated by their job. Like, who am I if I don't have something to complain about?
Right.
Who am I if I don't have somewhere to go? Like, I don't know how to relax. I don't know how to vacation. I don't know how to do this. And I don't know how to spend money because I'm spent my entire life just making it. And so I think you're completely right. It's no different than anything else that somebody's going to start doing full time. That it really makes sense and could be beneficial for you to get a few trial runs throughout your life so that you're not starting from scratch and learning how to be retired once you are, I don't want to say ultimately or finally retired.
It's a learning curve. And I think especially in the FIRE movement, we've known people who push so hard to get there. They push so hard to get to early retirement. They work so hard and they were so excited. And the first week they're like, this is amazing. Best life choice ever. And 6 months in, you hear, you know what? Actually, I got this dream job offer. You know what? It's so amazing. I'm just going to go back, just for like healthcare. Like, I'm just going to go back to work, because that 6 months was a little disappointing, and there was uncomfortable emotions, and it was hard to navigate, and it's easier to just go back to work so you don't have to deal with that discomfort, which is great if you're 40 and you can get another great job. If you're 70, there's no more great jobs to be had. You just got to sit in that discomfort. And I kind of compare it to people who are like, if someone said to me, oh my gosh, Jillian, I'm so excited to run a marathon. I'm going to be amazing at it. I've been reading books about marathons. I've been listening to podcasts about marathons. And I'm like, that's so cool. Have you done a 5K? And they're like, no. No, a 5K would mean I can't run the marathon quite as quickly. So I'm just going to sit at my desk for like 60 hours a week for the next 5 years. And then I'm going to start my marathon and it's going to be awesome. And I'm like, oh, I mean, maybe it'll be awesome. Or maybe like you get leg cramps at mile 18 and they carry you off in a stretcher. I don't know. Either way, best of luck.
Yeah. I want to stay here for a minute. We're going to get to the financial aspect, but I want to stay here because it's so fascinating to me that at this point in history, it's obvious that taking a break is good for us. There has
Yeah.
been tons of research, the stories are everywhere, and yet there is this resistance from us, like collectively as a society. We've convinced ourselves that we love to be busy, and not just that, but that being busy is only one thing, like one type of busy.
Yeah.
Thinking or self improvement or meditation or even resting isn't considered busyness.
No.
That's something different. And so what I've learned, and I'm sure you've seen this too, as you're talking to really smart people who can hold this contradiction in their head, one thing that I've learned is that sometimes people can't change a harmful belief that they have because they don't have something believable to replace it with.
Mm.
They can't just like flip the switch and say, no, everything's going to be fine. And I feel like your book challenges this idea that breaks are bad from end to end. Like you start out strong, quoting the Bible, talking about how you got the idea from sabbaticals. I was like, yes, strong right hook to go all the way back to biblical times. But from your experience and maybe just the experience of some of the people that you've worked with, how should we be thinking about what a break can do for your career besides just derail it or halt income? Or like, is there something believable that we can replace this fear of taking a break with?
Yeah. I think it's important to figure out what exactly that fear is. This is a little bit like the coach side of me. Like, what exactly is the story that you're telling yourself about this? Because, like you said in the beginning, there's 20 versions of this story. And one of those versions that I hear a lot is just how will this be perceived?
Mm,
And I'm sure there's people listening going, yeah, I would love to take a break, but my boss will think that I'm lazy and unmotivated and undisciplined and flaky and I'm not committed to my job. And I'm like, yeah, that's one story. That's one story you could tell yourself about this. But in the book, I use the example like I played basketball in high school. Every basketball player takes a halftime. All
facts.
of them do. Not because they're lazy, not because they're undisciplined, not because they're not dedicated to the outcome, but because they're professionals who care so much. They're so invested in the outcome that they want to bring their very best self to the game. And being the best matters a lot in sports. That advantage matters a lot. So they're willing to take a break, to refocus, to reimagine, to rest, because those things, I've never played sports, but when you've had a rough first half, it's real easy to be like, this is going to be hard the whole time. The whole time we're going to struggle. We are going to be behind the whole time. And you need to just take a pause, you take a minute, and you to reimagine how the rest of the story can play out. So you can
Mhm.
come into the second half with like a whole new mindset. And you can't do that while you're playing the game. You have to
Mhm.
take a break. And so you can tell one story, or you can say, you know what? Actually, I'm taking a break because I care. I care a lot about my job. I care a lot about my career. I care a lot about my finances. And it's worth me showing up at 100% because I'm so dedicated. You know, if a like a 400-meter dash, if someone went away for a month and then came back and was 10% faster than everyone else, they don't win 10% more of the races. If you're 10% faster, you win all the races.
Yep.
And
I
so
love that.
you have to tell yourself the story that's true, but also helpful for you to go where you want to go. So if that's the story, like, am I just lazy and undisciplined and I don't care about my career? Like, let's rethink that a little bit. Let's tell ourselves a different story. But to your point about, is it going to tank my career? There's a lot of ways it can help your career. You know, for one, I'll get into a couple of them, but for one, for some people, their personal lives are very demanding. Whether they have volunteer responsibilities, whether they have parental responsibilities to their parents, to their kids, like their plate is really full and their work's really demanding. So they don't have the same opportunities to do extra education, to read extra books, to do extra certifications. Maybe they have some peers that got nothing going on at home, or they have someone who takes care of everything at home for them. And yeah, they can do the classes, they can go to the conferences, they can do that extra training. The only way you're going to get that equality is by giving yourself that advantage that other people have. And a mini retirement is a fantastic way to be like, I'm going to carve out some space to up level because I care about my career. And for a lot of people, your biggest opportunity to get a raise and a big promotion is switching employers.
Period. Walk away. Yes.
The only way you're going to increase your lifetime earning potential substantially is by making those switches. So why not make this part of the plan? Every 3 years, every 5 years, you're going to take a break. You're going to take a month off. You're going to take 3 months off. You're going to invest in yourself. You're going to recover from burnout. You're going to come back the most energized, excited version, skilled version of yourself, and you're going to get a better job. I had a friend who took a year-long mini retirement, and he had just gone back to work. When we were chatting, he was like, yeah, I got a 50% raise when I came back to work. Yeah, which sounds cool, but the reason he got that 50% raise was because he had been at his previous employer for 15 years. 15 years, which means he had been underpaid substantially for a long time. Because I'm kind of a money nerd. So if he was making, let's say, 100,000, he came back at 150, it means he was underpaid $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for 8 of those years. That's $400,000.
Mm-hmm.
Even let's say his mini retirement cost him $100,000. That's $300,000. If you invest $300,000, he was about 40. That's $1 million by the time you hit retirement. He was $1 million poorer for not being more intentional about taking breaks. And I'm sure he didn't actually come back at his full value, because who wants to give someone more than a 50% raise when they come back to their next job? Where if he had been intentional about increasing his lifetime earning potential every 3 years, every 5 years, maybe he would have come back at 175 or 200, which would have been more of his true market value. So, there's this, well, if I'm going to take a break, that I'm going to lose that income. It's going to cost me some money, or it might cost you $1 million in like lost earning potential.
Right.
Yeah, there's so many parallels between your book and ours. I don't know if we wrote about this in our book or not. I know we've certainly spoken about it on the podcast before, but I completely agree with you that stepping away can be transformative personally, but cashing out, right? Like, not to switch gears completely to our book, but one of the things that we really wanted to convey to people was the idea that it actually makes you a better worker, right? Like, you are more energized. Like, when you're not fighting for a promotion because you already have an end date in sight, all of a sudden you can be much more focused on the actual work. You bring a pure sense of yourself, and then all of a sudden you just find that your efficiency improves, your relationships improve, all of those things, because you're not fighting, you're not clamoring for
and
a promotion.
Desperate.
You're not desperate.
And that's attractive to decision makers.
Correct. So all of a sudden you become the kind of leader that they really want everyone to be. And you start to draw that connection between how this constant chase for money just changes the way that people even analyze data or, interpret data, right? Just little things like that. But also just around the title, right? Like, I remember having conversations with the editor about, do we call it cash out or cashing out? And we ultimately ended on cashing out because we really wanted to emphasize that this is something you can do several times throughout your career to advance your career, to earn more money, as you just said, is an important point to you, and one that you mentioned in the book as well. But obviously, there's a financial strategy or plan that has to be in place before you can kind of lift off. We call it the exit ramp, right? Building that exit ramp. But what does that actually look like? Like, what specifically, from your point of view, does that financial runway look like so that people can take that step outside of their careers and start thinking about taking a mini retirement?
Yeah, so there's a few different variations. I always encourage people, if you can, if you like your job, if you love your company, if you want to stay there, try to negotiate a month off. And a whole bunch of people instantly always tell me, oh, that's not my company. Like, we don't have that culture. We don't have that policy. Nobody does that, yada, yada, yada. Like, it happens. If you're a little bit intentional, it's so much more possible than you think. But the reality is, when you're only taking a month off, even if it's unpaid, you got to cover that month's salary.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to cover the cost of your adventure, which I usually encourage people, try to budget about 50% of your take home pay. So if you're bringing home 5,000, yeah, set aside an extra 2,500 for this adventure. If you're bringing home 10,000, set aside an extra 5,000 for this adventure, because it keeps it moderately priced and it keeps it tied to your current lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're bringing home 20,000 a month, like, you don't have to find the like couch surfing $1,000 adventure, because like you might not be accustomed to that.
Right.
But also, if you're bringing home $1,000 a month, you don't need to do a $70,000 around the world cruise. Like,
Right.
let's keep it proportional. Soon as you make that kind of money, let's do those kinds of things.
Exactly.
So that's not a huge chunk of money. If you're bringing home 5,000 a month, we're looking at 7,500 is how much, and you're coming back to a job. So your regular emergency fund is probably fine wherever that's at. But it gets bigger if you're like, I'm going to take a year off. Okay, now we've got a year of what you normally spend, plus the cost of the adventure, plus a little bit longer of an emergency fund if it takes longer to find a job. But the reality is, it's usually a lot more affordable than people imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Even that, I would say that 50% is like way, way, way on the top end. You know, I interviewed a couple on my podcast that they lived in the Boston area and they had 2 little kids, and they decided to move to France for a year. And it cost them $40,000 to live in France for a year.
Wow.
In Boston, they
I was
paid
about to say they're spending that on childcare.
$40,000 on childcare. Like,
Yeah.
the cost to live for a year, they actually got to just enjoy their kids in France for
Wow.
a year for the exact same price as what they were paying for childcare. So if you want to do these bigger adventures, there are ways to do it really affordably as well. If you just have to get in that mindset of like, wait, how do I make this possible? One of our mutual friends actually went to Southeast Asia, I think for 3 months. And he was talking about, he rented out his place. It was furnished. He rented out while he left. It was cheaper to travel full time in Southeast Asia than, like, he was making more in just the rental money than it cost him to travel. Like, he came out ahead by traveling for 3 months. So
Wow.
there are ways to kind of hack that cost if you're like, man, I just don't have the cash to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the chapter on the 6.5% idea.
Yeah.
I just thought that was so simple and pure. And I love the line where you said saving an additional 6.5% gives you access to a lifetime of mini retirements. Can you just explain it? Or maybe I can't, whoever's easiest. But
yeah, I can walk through the math. So I wanted to come up with like, because people always ask me, how much is this going to cost? And I'm like, well, it depends what you're going to do and how long you're going to do it. So I wanted to come up with just this idea of, what if you took a month off every other year for your entire life? For your whole career, you took 20 mini retirements. So you've got this bucket list of 20 incredible things that you want to do. How much is this going to cost you? So 6.5% covers, it assumes you're going to have to pay 100% of your month off, your take home pay, every single time. So this doesn't account for the fact that, like, maybe you get laid off and you get 3 months severance, or like maybe some other things happen that you get paid time off, but none of those count. So you're always going to have to cover 100%, and you're going to spend that additional 50% to pay for whatever this adventure is. Like we've just said, you might actually spend negative amount of additional money, because you can really cost hack this in a number of different ways. But that would cover 6.5%, would cover a month off every other year. And I wanted to present this idea because I want people to start to imagine, what would you do with a month off at 24, at 26, at 32, at 38, at 44? Like, what could all of these adventures be? Would you do a cooking class with your mom in Italy? Would you do a road trip with your kids? Would you take a month off and train for a triathlon or do a yoga retreat? Would you take a month off to do therapy? Would you go back and get the certification? Would you build a food forest in your backyard? Would you learn tango
reignite your
for a month?
marriage?
Yes. Yeah. Like there's so many things that would take a month of focus. You think it takes years because you're spreading it out across the few minutes that you have every night, between dinner and bedtime. But when you have a month of full focus, you'd be surprised at how that compounding works, both financially and just time wise and skill wise. Like the second week feels totally different than the third week, which feels totally different from the fourth week. It's just like you said in the beginning, you're transformed in those 30 days.
Yeah, it feels like a cultural transformation too. The first thought that came to my mind is this is something that other parts of the world, other cultures just say, they call it normal, right?
But they built it in.
This is basically us revising in a way like your own personal tax code and setting it aside for your own emotional and personal well-being and using this fund to just live a very different life than what our work obsessed culture basically forces on you. So I think that's great because we talk about that being something that people can do, sporadically throughout their lives. But I love the idea of just essentially planning for it and living your life that way. That almost, that sounds like a great workshop that I'm pretty sure you're already going to be working on doing with people. Like just come out and meet us in Montana, and come disconnect and plan what your 6.5% conference is what I'm calling it. And people can come and they're all 6.5%ers and they are coming to you for instruction on how to manage that money, plan their lives, and come up with that list. Cause that's work too. Like, what are you going to do with that time? Like just figuring out what you're realistically going to do with the time that you are basically pre-planning for.
And that's why in the book, I have people start with planning what they want to do, because you need to have that clarity to give you the motivation to work through all these logistics, because it's scary and it's hard. And like, even though I give you the roadmap, you're still going to be nervous talking to your boss. You're still going to be nervous putting in your resignation. Like all of those things, like they have an emotional cost, and you have to have that clarity and that motivation of this is difficult, but the reward is so much better. And in the 6.5%, sometimes I know it can be easy to be like, gosh, money's already so tight. Like 6.5% is like a lot extra. And so I encourage people, look at what's high leverage for you. What takes not a ton of effort, but has a lot more reward, because that's going to be different for all of us. For some people, that's just getting a promotion. You get one promotion that gives you a 6.5% raise. That's it. You set aside that one raise.
Bank it. Yep.
For the rest of your life. You can spend all the other ones however you want, but that one raise will pay for a lifetime, your whole lifetime of mini retirements. Yes. Or some people, they buy one rental property, or they create one side hustle, or they do one thing that creates this extra. It's not even a ton of money. If you're only bringing home $5,000, we're talking like a couple $100. And it gives you that motivation of, you know what, like I wasn't sure if I wanted to dog sit for 4 days, but yeah, if that means, if I do that once a month and it means I get a lifetime of mini retirements, I like dogs. So yeah, we're going to do that.
Yeah, we call those the trickles of income. I think we did a podcast episode. We were talking about, how everybody mentions the 7 streams of income, and what prevents people from trying is this idea of a stream being a lot of money, which you equate to a lot of work. But you can't dismiss the trickles. $100 here, $125 here, all of that stuff matters. And when you think about it in the context of applying it to something like a mini retirement every other year, really start to value it differently.
Yeah, and the quirkier the trickle, the better. I want to jump to chapter 21, which is titled Prepare for the Unexpected. I'm going to read directly from it. You wrote, "The problems we face are never the ones we worry about. It wasn't healthcare that fell through. They had no problem finding another job. The budget was great and actually more affordable than they imagined. So why was the mini retirement lackluster? They experienced common challenges, but had no idea how to resolve them." Like, I don't remember exactly who you were talking about, but I've met people like this 10 times over. And you went over 10 different scenarios or situations that people need to be prepared for. From your experience, which of those unexpected scenarios catches people off guard the most? Like, which is the one? Like, which boogeyman is doing the most
I was saying ouch when I was reading through
boogies these days?
I was like, ooh, I did
But
that
just
one.
from someone who meets with
Yeah.
people and coaches people, like what does the data look like? Which one of these boogeymen or these situations is really catching people off guard?
I would say currently recovering from burnout. We've never learned how to recover from burnout, and we don't know what it feels like. We don't know what it looks like to recover from burnout. So we start to tell ourselves all sorts of stories. And I compare it to like if you're recovering from the flu, because you've had the flu a few times and you know what it's like to feel like to recover from the flu. So you don't tell yourself weird stories about it. You know, you're on day 3, but you're like, you're not feeling bad, but you're tired and you kind of want to take a nap, and unloading the dishwasher feels overwhelming. Like you're just like, I don't even know if I can bear to do that. Or you get up and you get like, you vacuum and then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. I'm going to go like back down. But you don't tell yourself, God, why am I so lazy? Why am I so unmotivated?
Yes.
What does this say about me? Can I not even function outside my job? Does this mean like I don't have any drive or ambition? I thought I would be doing all of these things. I thought I would be accomplishing all of these things. And now I just want to take a nap? Like who raised me? And they start to burnout is tricky in that it's an amazing survival function. Like it is so brilliant in a way, because if you're like fleeing a war-torn country and have to walk through a really long desert for months, burnout is what keeps you going. It narrows your focus. It reduces your creativity. It reduces your motivation to do other things, because you don't want to get sidetracked around the desert. Like you gotta keep your eye on the prize. The function of burnout is to get you out of a bad situation, and it's really good at getting you out of a bad situation. Now, of course, in America, we use that to stay in a bad situation. We're like, hey, I can keep going, so it means I should stay here. It's like, no, a bear is chasing you. The moral of the story is not that you're good at running away from a bear, so you should just run from bears all the time. It's to get away. But what happens is people have this like they're running on adrenaline and cortisol and they're doing okay. And as soon as their body gets access to rest, it's like if you've been fasting for a week, you don't feel super hungry. You feel okay. But as soon as you start eating, your body's like, oh, we're hungry. We're real hungry. And you're going to be hungry, not just that first meal. You're going to stay hungry until your body's fully replenished.
Yes.
And it's the same with burnout. You're going to stay tired. You're going to feel the full weight of your tiredness all of a sudden. Usually about week 2, you're like, oof. It's like that exhale, but you're like, oh, I'm a little bit tireder than I expected. And you're going to stay tired until your body's fully replenished. Yeah. And that messes with people's minds, because they're like, on this mini retirement, I was going to like renovate my kitchen, and I was going to learn Spanish, and I was going to do yoga every day, and I was going to join this hiking club, and like I was going to start a side hustle, and like I was going to do all these things. And they're like, why can't I was working 40 hours a week. Why can't I do that now? Why am I so tired? And I think that it's only difficult because we didn't see it coming and we don't know what to make of it. So in like my group coaching, I really encourage people the first month, even if you've got travel plans, even if you've got stuff, make it flexible, make it easy, do it in easy mode. You're not going to see 9 countries the first 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks, just hang out in like the south of France in one town and eat your croissants and drink your cappuccino and like chill out. And the story you need to tell yourself is like when you were going to go to that museum this afternoon and you're like, gosh, I'm really tired. Maybe I should take a nap. Not, am I a horrible person? Because like I have no energy and motivation. Go, oh man, it's a good thing I'm on a mini retirement and I can take a nap. Like that's it. That's the end of the story. Like good thing I'm giving myself what I need.
Yes.
What age do you think most people hit that wall and they realize that burnout is real? Like, and what do you think that trigger is?
I see about 15, 20 years in. If people have been working hard, they've been pushing hard and they've been grinding for about 15 years. So if they started at 50, I know people, they started working at 15
Yep.
and
That's
they
me.
have not stopped.
That
They
was
just
me.
So
worked
35, 40.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they start working at 25, about 45,
Yeah.
and they're just, it's almost like they're outrunning an avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
And it works great until you get tired. And the avalanche catches up to you and you crash and burn real hard. But yeah, about 15, 20 years in of hard work. And it just, it's tough. I have people ask me a lot, like, I feel burned out. Like, can I use my FMLA for my mental health? Like, is it acceptable? Like, is mental health real health? Like, does it matter? Is kind of the underlying question. And also, how bad does it have to be? Because like I'm still getting out of bed. I haven't tried to kill myself. So I'm showing up, kind of. I'm at like 60%, but they don't notice because my 60% is better than most people's 100%.
Yeah.
And I kind of compare it to, if you found out you had breast cancer and it was stage 1, would you go, you know what? I think I can just push through for the next 2 or 3 years. Like, I'm not going to worry about this. Yeah, let's wait till we get to, let's wait till it's a true emergency. It's true life or death. But the reality is it's way easier to cure stage 1 cancer than to cure stage 4.
Yeah.
A little bit of burnout, super easy to cure. Actually, a month and you're good. If you get to stage 4, like, you're mentally and physically wrecked and you're not going to get through that in a month. Like, you might need 6 months.
Years.
You might need a year. Like, you might need a couple years. So why not just take care of yourself and then come back to your team 100%?
Yeah. That's one thing that becoming a mom taught me, is that fatigue is cumulative. Like, it is not a matter of like, oh, I had a month off and now I'm all caught up. It's like, no, it's built up like plaque. Like, it is metastasized in your system. And so, to your point, if you go 20 years without taking a break, like, you're going to need more than a month. That first month will reset you, get you back to a level of homeostasis and start the change that can continue if you keep this practice up. But you really need, at least personally, and all the entrepreneurs that I know, people who have cashed out, like, you need a couple years to find that rhythm. So I was hoping we would get to talk about healthcare because I love the way that you approached it in the book. It was so practical, and you walk through 9 different options and encourage people to look at healthcare as a solvable problem, just like any other solvable problem. That's the same approach that we take, but we're not going to go there because I want people to read the book. I do want to come back to you as a person, not necessarily an expert, before we wrap up. And I want to know, as the person who has lived this approach of retiring often, what it's done for your life. Like, who have you been able to become as a result of these breaks? And how has it changed the way that you show up as a woman, a mom, a partner, a family member, all that jazz? Like, I just want you to give your own little testimony.
I feel like I've lived 3 lifetimes. To be honest,
beautiful. Like, that's really beautiful.
I had a kind of a cancer scare maybe 3 years ago, and I have 5 little kids, so like that's scary, because like they kind of like me around, but on my end, I was like, God, I don't regret anything though. I got 3 times more than everyone else did. I went all the places and I experienced all the things and I invested in all the relationships and I had time with the people I loved. And I felt so full. I felt so grateful, like, to have, I'm 42, but to be like, gosh, I did all the stuff, all the things that I dreamed about, all the things I desired. And mini retirements, they're a capital investment in your future. In my 20s, I took a month and I did a month of intensive outpatient therapy, like 6 hours a day of therapy, which, like, meaningful, not enjoyable, so much work, like so difficult. But I look at that and I honestly define my 20s as like before the month of therapy and after the month of therapy. Because it was like a full house renovation. Like, we went in, we gutted it, we rewired, we did the plumbing, like we fixed the foundation. and it reshaped the trajectory. Or I did 10 weeks with my kids in 10 national parks in a pop-up camper, and they were all itsy bitsy. Oh my gosh, like 2 to 10 maybe. And now they're all teenagers. My oldest is 6'4", like he's so gigantic.
That's crazy.
They're junior high and they're high schoolers and they're finishing school, and and I just look back with so much nostalgia, like, because that season of life of like diaper bags and strollers and Ziploc bags full of Cheerios, like, and just kind of corral everyone and make sure they don't lose their jackets. And like, but we were in the Grand Canyon, and we were in Yosemite, and we were in Arches, and it's just so precious now. Like, mini retirements are a hassle. Like, it's a hassle. It's scary. It's annoying. There's logistics. You have to plan. You have to have conversations. But in the rearview mirror, you kind of forget the hassle a little bit. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller, but the meaningfulness of it gets exponentially bigger the farther you get. And now I cherish that trip more than I did while on the trip. Like, I look back so much more fondly because they're not itsy bitsy anymore. They're giants. Like, I have giant children. And so I think, I mean, retirement can serve a lot of different purposes, but it is life-changing because it changes you. And when you look back on your life, those are the highlights. Those are the highlights. Like, that 10 weeks, I could have spent it doing anything else, any other normal thing, and I probably wouldn't even remember. But I have hundreds of pictures, hundreds of memories. My kids have hundreds of memories. Like, and it's a gift to me, but it's a gift to them. That moment in time, there's seasons of life that have expiration dates. And if you don't lean in and do the thing, it's just going to pass you by. It's going to expire. You're not going to have that opportunity again.
Yeah, you're one of the most positive and inspirational people I've ever met. And I mean that. I can think of 2 instances that just stick with me. One was, and I don't remember where we were, it must have been FinCon. We were having a conversation, and you were explaining to me how common it was when you were in high school to just go shoot guns, in Montana. And I learned so much from that conversation, because as a New Yorker and someone who grew up in big cities, I don't think people realize how little they know about our country and what is considered normal, right? And I think, generally speaking, in the context of political conversation, people understand that. But it's not until you have a conversation with someone who has lived a full life in that world, or multiple lives, that they really realize that. And obviously, we've been a fan of your work. And I don't remember, this is number 2 or 3. What book number is this for you?
2.
Number 2.
Yeah.
I remember enjoying the first one. I've enjoyed this one. And as I just think about the word that I associate with you, as much as it's obvious to me that you are inspirational and calming, I feel like the real message of all your work that you're trying to communicate to people is that adventure heals, right? Like, adventure to me is a common thread in so much of the work that you do. And I feel like what's lacking in a lot of people's lives is a spirit of adventure. They don't know how to adventure. And what you're asking people to do is to just play with it, just pick it up, start small, get used to it, and make the idea of adventure a regular part of your life. Yeah. Is that fair? Would you agree? Or
that was beautiful.
I love it.
Yes.
Because it makes everything bigger.
Yeah.
You know, like we were chatting about before the interview, you guys visiting Montana. Like, I would love so much for you guys to visit Montana. But it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different way of life. It's a whole different set of history. You know, I took my kids to the place of the Battle of the Little Bighorn, and you get to see it from a whole different angle. It's a whole different story than maybe you learned. And on this last road trip, so I don't plan, we did a 6-month road trip, and I don't plan the whole thing out. We just kind of show up. We have a couple touch points. Like, we knew we were going to Disney. And so we thought we would come back through Atlanta. We decided to go back through Alabama in our camper, and we stopped along the way, and we were like, we kind of drive 4 hours a day, and we're like, oh, like, there's a place like Birmingham, like, we'll stop there. And I kind of feel like there's cool stuff everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's cool stuff. Like I don't have to plan all this out. And so it was totally an unplanned stop. And I was like, oh yeah, some stuff happened here. Actually, I think, yeah, there's like some American history here. Like, let's dive in. And so we went to a few museums, and one of them was just about voter registration and voter rights, and all of the people just in Birmingham who gave their life to help voter rights. And it was a memorial to, I don't know how many dozen people, all sorts of people who would come from all over the country to volunteer, and it ended up being killed, local people who were passionate about it. And it was so moving. And my kids, you know, they were like junior high, like early high school age, and just like sobbing. And the thing is, I can have them read a book about this. Like we can talk about the idea, but voter rights has never been a thing in Montana. Like it's not part of our normal narrative that we're talking about every day. But to be there and to feel it, and gosh, I don't know if you guys have been to Birmingham. It is like frozen in time downtown.
It is.
I was just expecting like Martin Luther King Jr. just walk around the corner any moment. Like it was like a black and white photo. Like it was like real time. I was like, what is happening here? And just to be in it and to feel it, like I can't replicate that for them.
No, you can't.
Like you have to be in the thing, and they'll forever be different. They'll know about it different. They'll think about it different. They'll speak about it differently. And when they're having conversations with people, they'll be like, nay. I was there. Like I experienced that. And like, that's the beauty of travel, of just making your life bigger, expanding those experiences.
Man, if there's someone that's listening and feeling like, I want this, but I'm just still a little scared, what's one small question they can ask themselves this week to start exploring whatever their version of a mini retirement could look like?
It's 100% normal to be scared. Like you should be scared. It's a new thing. It's a different thing. Sometimes we feel these emotions and we misread them. We think, oh, I feel scared, therefore I should not do it. That's what that means.
That's it. Yep.
No, it just means that it's exciting and new and different. And one of the things I think about in that fear, this is kind of a weird exercise, but I think about the 80-year-old version of myself. And if I think about her and me sitting side by side on a porch, and I'm asking her, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. In your experience, looking back on our life, what do you think about it? Like, is it worth it? Is it worth the risk? Is it worth the hassle? Like, is it something that you appreciate now? Because she's got a very different perspective than I do. When you're in the thick of it, gosh, I could just keep doing what I'm doing. You know what? We're just going to keep doing this. It's just easier to keep moving forward. She does not think that way at all. She's like, oh no, like child, like do the thing. Yeah, it's a little bit expensive. It's a little bit annoying, but like you have no idea how precious that is to me now. And so I think if you're a little scared, start with what it is that you might want. What is it that you need, that you value? How could you express those values and those goals in a physical way, whether that's rest or time with people you love, or slow travel, or experiencing new things, or learning new things, or having fun? Like, what is it that's important right now? And like, have that really clear in your mind, because it's going to push you through all of the annoying bits.
I love it.
Love it. Jillian, thank you so much. I know somebody out there's neck's hurting because they were nodding so much during this episode. Let the people know where we can find you if we want to follow along or grab the book.
Yeah, the book's available everywhere. retireoften.com. You can find the book, my newsletter, all my stuff is there. And on social media, I'm at Jillian Johnsrud.
Perfect. All right, y'all. We will see y'all next week. If you like videos like this and want to see more, make sure you click subscribe and turn on notifications.